I'd like to talk a little about Zen Master Dogen. And Zen Master Dogen was a Zen priest from the 1200s and in Japan, and the Buddhism at that time was corrupt or diluted. It wasn't. Zen Master Dogen felt that the priests weren't really practicing ardently. They weren't really in line with the tenets of Buddhism. They weren't really understanding the spirit of what the Buddha intended. They were corrupt. Um, it was political. It was about money. So he traveled to China in search of a true teacher. And as he debarked the ship, he came across the head cook of a monastery, Tenzin. I can't remember what it's called in Japanese. Anyways, he came across this cook selecting mushrooms, and so he began to talk to him, and he was basically had this attitude of, let's talk to Dharma. And the cook said, I have to get back. I have to prepare important meals for the monks, and it's a very demanding job. It was actually considered quite an honor to be the head chef of a monastery, and um, a good practice. Dogen said, stay and we'll talk. And the older man, the head chef, kind of, not pity, but he looked at him with compassion and said, you really don't understand the true essence of practice, do you? And so this is an important event in Dogen's life, and it informed his approach to Zen practice later when he founded his own monasteries. And really it has to do with bringing the practice into your life. And I've talked about this before. This is a really important thing, particularly in our Western secular society where we don't tend to be monastics and we have to fit it in to a busy schedule, and we have so many stressors in our lives and all these kind of things. So the idea was, and later Dogen in his writings did a tract on instructions to the cook, and it really talked about being mindful, being wholehearted. That's another thing it ties into, a wholehearted practice, living meditatively, another thing I mentioned before. And so Dogen wrote these instructions to the cook later on in his life, and I think it was greatly informed by this episode. And he talked about preparing a soup. This is just an example. Preparing a soup with the same amount of attention and care, preparing a soup of wilted greens as opposed to a cream gourmet soup for visiting dignitaries. The idea was to strive for impeccability in your actions, not as a form of perfectionism, but to be wholehearted, to give 100% to what you're doing. Yeah, like that. So anyhow, Dogen went on to find his teacher, and I believe it was the same, ended up being the same monastery as his head cook. So he went to find his teacher, and he received transmission as direct transmission in the Zen tradition, mind to mind transmission. And so he found his teacher, he found a method, and really, when he went back, he kind of made it his own. So he went back to Japan and founded a monastery, and his approach was mind and body falling away, and his method was shikantaza, or just sitting. And once again, you're talking about wholeheartedness, really, an egoless doing, being fully in the present moment with your activity, and just sitting. So you're paring way down to the essentials. I'll do part 2 for this talk.